Good afternoon, Patriots, and welcome back to the third audio chat in the audio chat series on the Q News Patriot channel. I am the Q News Patriot. My name is SG Anon. Today we have back with us, seemingly at a very good time, I would think, one of the preeminent financial minds here in the Patriot community, a gentleman who has been extremely engrossed in the financial corruption, the Wall Street corruption, understands how the game is played, left the game previously. Many of you all will remember him from the actual first audio chat that we launched here on this particular series, Dr. Kirk Elliott. We're bringing Dr. Kirk on today, sort of in an impromptu fashion because of what has been occurring sort of before our eyes recently. A lot of the Anons out there and a lot of the awakened patriots have known for a long time that the events happening in the financial sector, in the deep state financial system worldwide, we've known that these were coming. Right? These aren't necessarily big surprises, but it is nice to have the vindication and the exhilaration to see those things actually publicly playing out. Just today, we've seen several banks plunge over 40% in the regionals banking sector here in the United States. And we have massive military operations kicking off for next level campaigns around the world, which will inevitably affect that. So I thought it would be prudent and beneficial for all of you out there, excuse me, if we brought Dr. Kirk on and had a 30 to 45-minute powwow session from the experts, right? Let's get an idea of what the experts are actually seeing from where they're at and from their experience. So without further ado, Dr. Kirk, welcome back. Appreciate you taking some time out today.
Well, my word, SG, it's great to be back with you. And these are really crazy times. But like you said, not necessarily unexpected. It's always comes as a shock to people, though, when they say, "Oh my word, we've been talking about this for a while, and now it's actually happening," right? But yet it is, and I don't want people to freak out. I don't want people to be gripped and paralyzed with fear, because there's things that we can do to protect and preserve, grow and thrive, and be in the right place in the right time, and truly take advantage of these trends that are happening right underneath our nose, which people who don't see the truth or don't understand it are going to be paralyzed with fear, because they think everything's going to erode and evaporate. But this is, to me, this is kind of just the next step in moving in the direction of regaining our freedom, right? But in the world of finance, for something to be born, something needs to die, right? You can't have the two things coexist. So we're looking at, a whole freedom movement and evolution, so to speak, of the banking system, going to quantum financial system, gold-backed currency, something that's tangible, something that's real. The global elite are looking at it from a different perspective, of which complete command control, communist, fascist overthrow of the banking system into a central bank digital currency that actually has nothing to do with fixing a broken system. It has everything to do with people control, programmable money, cutting you off from buying or selling based on your digital social profile or social credit score, right? I mean, this is in their own words, right? We don't have to even speculate about it. A lot of this has come from Klaus Schwab, Dr. Pippa Malmgren, the kind of economist that's the mouthpiece for the economic front of the World Economic Forum. These are in their own words, right? And so we're seeing this stuff playing out. But if I were to boil it down to one philosophy, it's consolidation. But it's not just in the banking world, right? So what we're seeing right now with this new rash of bank failures that's happening, first we had Silicon Valley Bank that spread to Silvergate and Signature Bank, and then that contagion spread overseas to Credit Suisse and Deutsche Bank and UBS, right? So it's like, how did we? They weren't quite ready for their central bank digital currency to unleash itself yet. So therefore, they had to kind of keep the system perpetuating, moving forward, create more crisis so people will want what they have, right? Because here's the thing, SG. It's like, let's say that I'm a global elitist and part of their banking cabal, and here's my message. It's like, hey, everybody, we're the government, and we have a government-run digital bank that has the ability to cut you off from buying or selling if we don't like you. Do you want it? I mean, no. Who would want that? But that's exactly what they're giving us. So, but in the face of crisis, in the face of the ability to feed your family, people will give up almost anything. They will give up their freedoms in exchange for perceived security and peace. So case in point, Nigeria last week. Okay, let's look at Nigeria. So a few months ago, they're basically starting to unveil their central bank digital currency. 0.5% adoption rate. 0.5. It was like meaningless. It's like, okay, not even, nobody wanted it, right? But now last week, it's up to 60% adoption rate of the Nigerian central bank digital currency. So I'm thinking, how in the world did they go from 0.5 to 60%? Well, here's the ugly answer, and this is going to make you sick to your stomach. Literally, it did me. They're starving out their population to get basically people to comply, starving out their population. So in Nigeria, it takes $40 a week just to survive. $40 a week. What they had done was they said, okay, $40 a month is your withdrawal from the banking system. That's all we'll give you, unless you adopt the central bank digital currency that we're unveiling. Then you can get your money, right? So they were willing to sacrifice the ability to eat, the ability to live for their own constituents, just in exchange for them to adopt their central bank digital currency. That's evil. We're looking at the face of evil with some of this stuff, right? So this is how they're going to force compliance across the board. But if you look at what's happening with these banks, like just over the last few days, First Republic, over the weekend, and I talked about this last Friday on a show that I was on. It's like, you know what? Looks like First Republic's probably going to go into FDIC receivership. Sure enough, Sunday afternoon, it did. Right? It's like, oh my word, it was that close. I mean, I said if I didn't think it was going to happen within a day and a half, right? But yet it did. And so they're big. This isn't Silicon Valley Bank. This isn't Signature Bank. This isn't a regional bank in the sense of they're not all that big. This is the 14th largest bank in America. We're pushing top 10 banks in America going under, right? And this is the second largest bank failure in US history. This is a big one, SG. This one's big. So who bought them out? JP Morgan Chase. If they're that big, you got to have like the biggest. It has the capital to buy them out. So then after Sunday night, Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan Chase, is being interviewed nonstop, right? And so, but some of his statements are just downright creepy and weird. So basically he said, and I'm just going to use some of the talking points that he said, because I think it falls right into their narrative, right? Which is, we want complete people control and we want to move into a central bank digital currency. But what did he say? He said, don't worry, everybody. The end of these bank runs and bank failures, it's coming to an end. It's like, how does he know that it's coming to an end? We know what kind, unless he's on the inside, right? And they're going to be unveiling a new system. It's like, oh yeah, it's going to come to an end. Well, B, he says, us bailing out these failing banks, we're doing the work of God. It's like, what kind of a God complex does this guy have? They're doing the work of God in bailing out a failed bank, which is based on a system of debt, and using other people's money to leverage their debt. That's anti-biblical. That's not a thing. That's not a God thing, right? It's an anti-God thing, right? When you have a whole system that's based on debt. But then he said, and this actually exposes what they actually are wanting to do. He said, we're in favor of community banks, but America is going to be better with a few very large banks rather than a bunch of small ones, right? So, okay, let's dissect that just a smidge. So let's say you're a shepherd, SG, and you're out in the fields and you have thousands and thousands of sheep. Some of them are drinking water out of the river. Some of them are chasing butterflies. Some of them are just standing there looking into la la land. Some are wanting to jump off a cliff for whatever reason, right? It's like, as the shepherd, it's like, how do you control and how do you corral thousands and thousands of sheep? It's so difficult, right? But what if you only had 6 or 7? It'd be real easy to corral that. See, this is what they're doing. There's consolidation happening in the banking sector, where the large banks are buying the medium ones are buying the small ones. They're getting rid of the many in exchange for just a few really big ones. Because as they unravel and unleash their central bank digital currency on the masses, it's going to be pretty easy to get compliance out of 6 or 7 of those big banks, because they're the ones that created it, right? Rather than the thousands who say, this might not be really good for our clients, but I guess we're forced to comply. They're just eliminating the competition, right? Consolidation always eliminates competition, and it's anti-freedom, right? When it looks like this. So, but this isn't the only place we're looking at consolidation in the world today. Look at the BRICS nations, right? They want to be the world's reserve currency. They're wanting to kick the US dollar out of that position, and they want it. But it's not like you can just go up to the mic and say, hey, we're going to be the world's reserve currency. It doesn't happen like that. You have to have military might, like superpower military strength. You have to have political clout, and you have to have a super strong economy, a big one. It's the only way that you can be a world's reserve currency. Well, individually, these countries in the BRICS nations don't really qualify for any of that. And you can say, well, yeah, Kirk, but China's big economy. Yeah, it is, but it's a political nightmare, right? They don't have the political clout. But you add all these countries together, and they do have collectively a large military, collectively political clout, and collectively massive economy. So therefore, they have what they're looking for. So what's happening? These countries, not just the BRICS nations, but the 20 or 30 others that are applying for membership to the BRICS nations, are willing to give up their national sovereignty in exchange for a collective union, right? Okay, so now you've got consolidation in the political world. So consolidation in the banking world, consolidation in the political world happening. Now let's look at media. Let's look at the news. What did Fox News do last week? They dumped Tucker Carlson, right? So the one populist voice basically on the network, and they shot themselves in the foot. It's like, why would you get rid of the most popular program that they have, you know, the biggest money-making program that they have for advertisers? Well, for some reason, I don't know for sure. I'm sure somebody does, but they didn't like his messaging. So they dump him, right? So here's consolidation in the media world as well. And the narrative of what's being told to the masses, it's like, you either toe the line or you're out. So you have consolidation in messaging, consolidation in politics, consolidation in banking. Well, what happened last week as well? The World Bank, you know, the bank of all banks. This isn't the FedNow app, you know, that's the conduit from you and your money to the Federal Reserve and our central bank digital currency. This is like the central bank digital currency of the world. They announced their central bank digital currency, which is called the Unicoin. So this is not more consolidation here, right? Is you've got central bank digital currency happening at the Federal Reserve level with the BRICS nations in Europe, right? And the Bank of England. There's 110 countries now going into central bank digital currency, and this consolidation possibly into the Unicoin at the World Bank level. It's like, poof, now we have a global currency, pushing alongside paralleling a global political union with global messaging of the news, right? It's like, wow, what is happening to the world right underneath our nose? It's a lot of consolidation to bring us to this brave new world, this big brother world, where it's all about people control, SG. It's all about controlling what you can buy or sell at any given moment. If they don't like your digital social profile, they don't like your social credit score, well, then we're just not going to let you buy or sell. So, for example, what's happening in the banks right now, and this is actually one of the more disgusting things that I've seen in quite some time. So Bloomberg had this article, and they were talking about Biden's plan for mortgages in America, the mortgage industry, right? So we all work really hard to have a good credit score, have a good FICO score, pay off our bills. And once you get a good FICO score, you get a lower interest rate on your mortgage or anything that you're buying, whether it's a car or anything, right? So basically, in their bizarro backwards world, they're saying, hey, if you've got a good credit score, like over 650, well, then you're going to pay more on your mortgage. So people that don't have a good credit score can pay less, and you subsidize them. And we're going to charge people with a good credit score $60 a month on top of their mortgage payment to fund those that shouldn't be able to get a loan. It's like, wait a second, this is backwards. This is not how it should be. People that have worked really hard to get their good credit score shouldn't have to pay more to subsidize those that can't get it, right? Which is just wrong. This to me reeks of 2007, 2008 all over again, when you had the collapse in the subprime lending market, which was all about people who shouldn't have gotten loans, got loans, and it caused a subprime lending crisis. And look what happened to the markets in 2009. It was a bloodbath, right? But this time it's even different. And they're politicizing it. And sadly, SG, this is the sick part to me, and it disgusting. They're making it racial, right? And they're creating more and more division rather than unifying in this world. They're creating division because what they said is white people have an average credit score of 767. This is Larry Kudlow that was actually talking about this in the article. People can just go look it up and look up the Biden, mortgage credit scoring system and look at what Larry Kudlow said, right? So this is wild because they said white people have an average credit score of 767. The Hispanic population has an average credit score of 670, and the Black community about 620 something. So what they just did is, to me, I don't care what skin color you are. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care what politics you are. Either you make your payments or you don't, right? This is what it's all about. But they decided to go one step further and make it ugly. And this is evil to me. This is downright evil to create that kind of racial divide, race divide, class divide to further their goals. And actually, this is going to destroy real estate in America, right? It's going to destroy people's incentive to want to even try to get a good credit score. And it's just stupid. So you've got all of this happening while we record this. Last night, I was looking at what after hours, what was happening with the regional banks. And the regional banks, okay. So in after hours, the markets weren't even trading. Pac West was down 60% in one night. Western Alliance down 30%, Metropolitan Bank down 20%, Valley National down 15%, Home Street down 11%, Zions Bank down 10%, Key Corp down 8%, Citizens Financial down 5%. These are in one night, right? So some of these banks have lost 70% of their share price in the last 2 to 3 days. There is another big bank failure coming, probably before the end of the weekend. Somebody will go into FDIC receivership. I don't know who's going to buy them out, but it could be more than one. Because what we're seeing now, look what happened with Silicon Valley Bank. It caused Signature Bank, Silvergate, and then that spread to Europe. This is a way bigger bank, and we're going to see this contagion spreading. And it was even addressed yesterday when the Fed raised rates another 25 basis points. And I said, we've got to raise rates to slow down this inflation. But now there's this dilemma. They've got this huge dilemma where they've raised rates so much to try to slow down inflation that they're creating by printing money out of thin air to fund every stimulus program under the sun, that they don't know what the lesser of the two evils are. Is inflation a greater evil, or is increasing cost of debt a greater evil? Well, they're both really bad, right? And this is the demon of their own design, basically, is they created this monster and they can't kill it. The only way they can kill it is inflation is to stop printing money. Well, they're not going to do that. It's the only thing keeping the economy afloat. Or you have to raise rates so high that it outpaces inflation. Inflation unofficially is at 20 to 25%. So they'd have to jack up interest rates north of 25%. That would kill the economy overnight. So this is their dilemma. They don't know what to do. So they're just kind of kicking the can down the road for the next congressman, the next congresswoman to take care of. And what are we seeing? Then unraveling of the system underneath their nose, because the incompetency of how they're dealing with it is wrong. They let it go too far. And so now we just are being wise stewards of what God's given us: wisdom, discernment, understanding, knowledge, creativity. We can identify these trends and take advantage of them, right? So how do you take advantage of them? You have to get out of the system. There's a flight for quality that starts happening when everything around us, the foundations around us, start to erode. And that's where precious metals come into play, gold or silver, right? But I'm focusing on silver right now because it's greatly outperforming gold. I mean, greatly outperforming gold. So when you allocate into that, it's a private asset. You take delivery of it. So let me ask you this question, SG. And it's a rhetorical question, kind of, but it's a real one. It's like, when was the last time you went to the grocery store and eggs were free? It's like, never. I mean, good grief, they went to $7 a dozen, right? From $1.99. Well, when was the last time you went to an auto dealer and your car was free? Well, that never happens. When was the last time you went to the gas station and your gas at the pump was free? Well, it wasn't. See, things don't go to zero, is the point. Companies can go to zero. Companies can go out of business overnight. Banks can go out of business overnight, but things don't go to zero because they have a tangible cost of getting them out of the ground, of the creation of those things. And that's what minimizes your risk in a world where, man, it seems like risk is just prevalent. And we don't even know what's going to happen to our banks. So it should be the safest asset that you have, right? But I'm telling you why it's not. I'm here. So I get calls, hundreds of calls every single day. People say, Kirk, we heard you talk on a show somewhere and you said, get out of the stock market, get out of the bond market. Well, we're just gotten to safe ground and we're just sitting in cash at the bank. It's like, oof, that's no longer safe, right? So then people are freaking out. But why is it no longer safe? People have the perception of banks that they're this big marble building with this marble staircase, and they've got these big marble pillars on the sides of the doors, and you go in, big, round, thick steel vault door, and you open it up, and stacks of $100 bills just come flying out of it, right? This is the impression that people have. That's not the reality. The reality is you open up that vault door, and it's empty. Because going back to March of 2020, the Federal Reserve, through Regulation D, changed the rules and basically said, 0% withholding requirement for every $100 deposited into your checking or savings account. We don't have to keep anything back. We can lend out 100% of it. So they 0% withholding. Well, of course, banks are ripe for a bank run when they don't have anything on hand. And companies like Bed Bath & Beyond are going out of business, and big employers are pulling money out because they see the writing on the wall. Individuals whose wages are going down and inflation is going up, they're pulling money out, and there's not enough money there. This is why banks go out of business, pure and simple, because they don't have enough money to cover their withdrawals where people are wanting their deposits. But so the reality of a bank is not that they've got this vault full of hundreds that come flying out. The reality is you think you're investing into safety, you're reallocating into safety because you got out of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, and businesses. What do banks invest in? Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, and businesses. The same thing that you did, they invest in with your own money, except it's worse because it's leveraged. A lot of times they leverage that to get a bigger, more bang for their buck. This is why JP Morgan Chase has over $50 trillion of derivatives debt. They just bought out another failing bank in First Republic. It's like, wait, if I were a shareholder of JP Morgan Chase, I'd be really ticked right now, SG, ticked, because they just bought on more debt. They bought on more toxic debt, and they already have $50 trillion worth of it. So here's where we can't trust that our money in the bank is safe anymore, but they don't want us to. They don't care. The people that are bringing in central bank digital currency, who think that they're going to rule the world with their new system, are the same ones who had the old system of fiat-based paper money. Well, there's money leaving the system like no other time in history since the Great Depression. In the first 3 months of this year, $520 billion has left the money supply. That's not just people pulling money out of banks. They haven't pulled out that much. This is the Fed pulling that money out of the system. Get rid of paper dollars, which are private transactions, because they're preparing a way. Remember, for something to be born in the financial world, something needs to die. They're killing paper money because it's private, to go a central bank digital currency that's completely trackable and traceable, and you can control somebody if you can control what they spend their money on, right? So this is where you're going with this, and it's problematic to all of us, unless you allocate into strength, which would be allocating into physical silver, allocating into physical gold. SG, since you and I did Anon Audio Chat #1, in the last 3 weeks, silver's up over 20%. In the last 6 months, silver's up over 40%. In the last 3 years, since March of 2020, silver's up over 110%. Even the long-term trend, it's averaging over 30% a year, but it's now accelerating. When just over the last 3 weeks, it's up over 20%. It's like, man, that's a really good annualized return. Well, it's doing that because of bad policies coming out of DC, and people are scared. And I want to tell everybody, I will shout it from the rooftops till I'm blue in the face. You don't need to be scared. You don't need to operate out of a state of fear, because there's things that we can do to protect and preserve and to grow and thrive. And that's where tangible assets come into play in today's world. And I just want to encourage everybody that's listening or watching this, take advantage of these trends. Take advantage of what the enemy means for destruction, and you use it for good. It's a beauty from ashes type moment where we can really thrive during these times we're living in, at least financially, by reallocating into strength. That's what precious metals do in a person's portfolio right now.
What a fantastic and very thorough explanation for what's going on right now, because that, I think, is a main component of what is sort of helping to drive this awakening, right? We have these things going on in the financial world, in the banking sector, in the Bretton Woods system all around the world. We have the Russian president at the end of last year saying the Bretton Woods financial system, the International Monetary Fund, will come down. We have the United States House of Representatives over these last couple of years fast-tracking a resolution to introduce Taiwan into the International Monetary Fund, which explains why, amongst many other reasons, that we're going to see China involved very heavily and very directly and actively in Taiwan. On this program, we put a lot of different, we'll just say a dual reality spin on a lot of different things, right? Because we're living in a world right now that does have some disinformation, but a major component of getting everyone across the finish line together is providing something that is of substance and of relevance to where they're at right here, right now. So what we've got is we've got this push for CBDCs going on all around the world, and Unicoin, come on. The symbolism is absolutely incredible with these people. When Q tells us to enjoy the show, we really are enjoying one heck of a show, right? But, I think you highlighted something that was really interesting there, talking about how, what the enemy intends to use for evil, we can use for good. That's a godly principle. That comes straight from the good book itself, right? That's really also a good art of war quote, if we wanted to put it that way. Allow your strengths to be your weakness and your weakness to be your strength. These sorts of things. So if I understand you correctly, and I just want to make sure for the audience that I do, when we're talking about physical assets, we're talking about something that has intrinsic value, right? Something that is valuable, whether or not someone holds it or not, whether or not it's out of the ground or in our hand or in an electronic control board or in a grocery store, wherever it is, it has value because it is. The fiat currency that we have right now and that we've had for hundreds of years really around the world, certainly since 1913 here in the United States, is valueless by default because its value is assigned by some external force. It's not assigned by God. God is the only entity that can bring value into this earth and intrinsically impugn something with worthiness, if we could call it that. And so what we're talking about here, I think, is getting back to, if I understand you correctly, we have the opportunity here, almost like a fork in the road, where we're being given a choice as humanity. Do we want to persist in the helplessness of being part of a valueless system, a fiat system that is, as we are all very well aware and is very publicly on display, out to control us all? We could just look at COVID-19 for that. But we're also being given, I think, a choice to turn back to that sort of godly attitude towards how we manage value exchange here in the world. And and I think BRICS is actually a really good example of this, if I can just opine on my own, for that, because they require a one-to-one precious metals currency exchange rate so that the currencies can't be manipulated within the trading block. And that makes a lot of sense when we're talking about assigning fair value, fair exchange rates, fair commerce, fair trade, all of that across different nations. Is it safe to say that we're sort of at a crossroads here in the United States of America, what has traditionally been the world's largest economy for a very long time, but I believe at this point is no longer. Is it safe to say that this is a crossroads where we're being asked to choose?
We're right now we're being asked. I think in the very near future we're going to be told, right? So they'll pretend that it's voluntary, right, for right now, but ultimately they're going to almost want to force compliance. So how could they do it? If you take Nigeria, for example, how did they do it? By starving out their population. Said, if you want to eat, you're gonna play our game, right? So imagine how that could play out here in America. Well, we're not Nigeria, right? But we have every society has similar characteristics, right? So you've got this stupid central bank that's actually going to have a digital currency that's all trackable, right? It's, the government run bank. It's like nobody trusts the government, nobody trusts the bank, nobody's going to trust a government run bank that has the ability to cut you off from buying or selling. So how do they want it? Well, easily. They'll just tell people, it's like, hey, you're a government employee, you're ex-military, you've got a government pension, you want your social security payments, you have to go with the Fed Now app on your phone. It's the only way that you'll be able to get the payments, right? I'm just speculating here, right? They're going to try to force the issue somehow, some way. Well, here's where alternative systems will come up, and I know that you've talked about this a lot, right? This is the beauty from ashes moment, right? Where just because they have it doesn't mean it's the only game in town, right? There's going to be every evangelical and Catholic in the world is going to say, look, this is the mark of the beast. We are not going to play. You're going to have every libertarian in the world saying, I don't want spyware on my bank account. Really, the ability to cut me off from buying or selling because you don't like how I spend my money. I'm not playing. There's going to be so many different groups of society that once it comes, remember when we had the CARES Act, I think it was, and Nancy Pelosi said, we got to pass this horrible bill. She didn't say horrible. She loved it, but we got to pass this bill to actually see what's in it. Right? Okay, stupid thing to say, but like central bank digital currency is a similar concept to that. People won't realize how bad it is until it's here. But here's the thing. I think once you go into it, it's almost like it's too late at that point. It's going to be very difficult to get out. So this is why we're shouting the message from the rooftop. It's like, don't play from the jump. Don't go down that road. Start with, there will be alternative systems, whether it's a gold-backed dollar, whether it's quantum financial systems, silver for barter, some other kind of cryptocurrency, whatever it might be, we don't exactly know. But what I do know is we do not want central bank digital currency as the currency unit that you and I and everybody else watching this or listening to this trade in. There will be something else, right? So, let's look at history as a precursor for the present and the future, right? So when the euro became a currency, 35, 40 years ago, whenever that was, the Germans, the French, the Italian, the Dutch, they had to give up their national sovereignty in exchange for this regionally traded currency. Well, they didn't want to. Guaranteed, they did not want to. They had too much national pride. But the politics in Europe, a lot of times they give up a lot of freedoms in exchange for political peace because they've always got people fighting against people group and war torn for centuries, right? So they ultimately caved. A few years later, after the implementation, they caved, except for the United Kingdom. They never entered into the European Union. They had their own British pound. Well, but the other countries did, so now they have the euro. This time it's different here in America. We're not giving up our national sovereignty for a central bank digital currency. We're giving up our individual sovereignty, SG. The ability for us to individually buy or sell, that's what we're giving up. That is a much deeper feeling. It's a much more passionate, intimate feeling of this is just me. This isn't my national sovereignty. This is me, right? And so this is where I think that battle is going to be more intense and people are going to have to make that decision how they're going to play the game or not play the game, right? Or are they going to allow themselves to be controlled or not? You can do that by just making a different choice in how you view currency. This is why silver is so easy right now because it's performing incredibly well as an investment. Good grief. Nobody's going to complain over the kind of returns we've seen over the last 3 weeks, over the last 6 months, over the last few years. It's amazing. but it's really also more than that. It's not you don't become a digital slave in their digital world by being a digital entity, right? You've got something that's tangible, something that's real that you can use to barter with if need be. It's kind of a get out of the system kind of a transaction where you have something that's private, that's real, that you can take delivery of or have it stored. Because it's a physical thing, I'm not talking about ETFs, mining shares, mutual funds, anything that your normal paper advisor will tell you. I'm talking about actual physical silver, 1,000-ounce bars, 100-ounce bars, 10-ounce bars, 1-ounce silver rounds, 1-ounce gold bars, right? In all of the universe of everything that we could invest in the gold and silver world, I just boiled it down to 5 things. The lowest cost items. It's one of the keys to wealth. The other one is being in the right place at the right time. The second one is maximize your ounces in the physical world. Don't overpay for your stuff, right? So this is why I love that bullion, that low cost that you could use for barter. In a barter world, nobody's going to give a flip, SG, about the premium, about the collectability, about the rarity. I mean, it's actually going to be detrimental. Just get as many ounces as you possibly can. This is one of the keys to successful investing. Buy low, sell high. It's all I'm talking about. And there's a way to do that in the precious metals world. And that's what myself and my advisors walk people through. They strategically will set up a roadmap for success where you can thrive moving forward. And that's what we want to help people with. It's our mission. It's our calling. We're anointed to do this. And we're just blessed, beyond blessed, that we get to be part of a larger movement like what you're the mouthpiece for, right? Where we can actually help people financially get out of the path of this hurricane into something that will be legacy creating and impact different generations, not just you, because this is what's in front of us. We are looking at either embracing or not embracing a change in the way that currency is viewed. We're looking at a change in the monetary system, not just in America, but globally. And we happen to be the generation that's alive that's experiencing it, which is why I'm so passionate about it, because I don't want the other side to win. I don't want to live in a big brother world where they can cut you off from buying or selling if they don't like you. That's evil. That's the loss of one of our most basic freedoms, the freedom to choose what we spend our money on, the freedom to serve the God that we want to serve, right? It's our freedom of our religion. It's freedom of our personal choice. It's freedom of how we live our lives, right? There's consequences, right? I'm not saying, you're going to have good consequences or bad consequences for your choices. But the point is, we should be the ones that decide that. And by allocating into precious metals, that's how you can get through this, at least financially, is by choosing how this is going to look moving forward for you and your family.
What's really worth highlighting with all of that also is the fact that during the crash of 29 into that 30, 31, 32 year time frame, we had a lot of these Kabbalist entities that orchestrated the sinking of the Titanic, that orchestrated the founding of the Federal Reserve, primarily to introduce this system and to then eventually cause that crash. All of these entities, these big banks and companies, you can go back and look at the records, purchased massive amounts of gold and silver all throughout the world. And then, of course, we remember FDR actually making it illegal for a period of time for American citizens in the United States in those days to own gold, physical gold. With the backdrop, with that sort of cast as a backdrop, you remember the first audio chat that you and I had. I actually came forth and asked you a question that wasn't planned on air at all. It was, how can people trust you? And it was a fantastic, I think it was a beautiful response. And I've gotten incredible emails from people that have worked with your organization just in the last 3 to 5 weeks, and they're very impressed with the professionalism. So I'm going to take it a little bit of a different direction here, and I'm going to ask you to give me an instruction as though I'm an 8th grader. I want to know what precious metals, when you say, roll into precious metals, invest into precious metals, get involved in precious metals, a lot of these terminologies, because of the MK Ultra, because of the education systems that we weren't given or that were maligned against us, It's difficult to grasp what that means, what the kinetic movement of that actually is. Do I need to have a lot of money? Do I not need to have a lot of money? Am I working the right job? Do I have the time for this? Is this going to be very consuming? Am I going to worry about this all of the time? Who tracks my investment? Do I have physical possession of it? All of these questions, right? They flood the mind. They paralyze us, even good awakened patriots out there, right? Because we don't want to mess this up. We have kids on the line here. We have family members on the line here. I have, a very young son. Many patriots out there are caring for their elderly parents or grandparents or disabled family members, right? And so they can't afford to get this wrong. This is a pivotal point in history right now, and they cannot afford to make a mistake with something this quintessential and this important. And so I think a lot of people sort of just sit on their haunches and they wait. And the fear, of course, from many individuals is that we don't want to wait too long. We don't want to wait until it is too late, right? So as though I were an eighth grader, help me understand how this process would look. If I'm listening to this program and I'm on the fence, what would I be doing if I were to say, hey, here's, $800 or here's $700, that I can put into something like precious metals. How does that work?
Well, first you start with contacting us, right? They can go to the link, kirkelliottphd.com/SG, or they can call us 720-605-3900 and just say SG sent you. So then you'll talk to one of my client concierge team that'll ask you a few questions. What was it that SG and Kirk were talking about that caused you to want to reach out? Do you have IRAs? Do you have non-IRAs? Whatever, right? So then you meet with myself or one of my advisors, and we'll dig in a little bit deeper to strategically map out a plan for success for you to thrive, right? So let's say you had $800. Okay, so do you want that at home? Take 1 ounce rounds at home that you want for barter, or do you want to maximize your ounces a little bit more in 10-ounce bars and have them stored at a depository, right? So there's not a right or wrong answer there. It's a function of you. Right? Because some of my clients say, well, Kirk, I don't trust anybody to store my stuff ever. I'm going to store it on me in a gun safe, put it in my crawl space, hide it, bury a hole in the backyard, whatever. Right? And I've got some that say, I have a bad back. I can't lug around a bunch of silver. You don't know the neighborhood I live in. It's very dangerous, Kirk. It's like, I got to have it stored. Right? So everybody's different, and there's no right or wrong answer. But the wrong answer, I guess I should take that back. The wrong answer is paper versions of it. Like what a normal advisor at Merrill, Schwab, whatever would say. It's like, oh, just go into a silver or gold ETF. No, it's not the same. That's a paper proxy for something that tracks a spot price, which is the current futures month contract price. That's not the same. Physical metals actually respond to different things. Supply and demand, low inventory, you're right, supply chain disruptions. That's where your safety comes in. So then once you say, yeah, Kirk, let's do it. You wire us the funds or send us a check. When they get here, we give you a call. We say, hey, we got your funds. Let's confirm your address. Let's reconfirm the allocation that you want. And we ship it out UPS overnight. And if it's over $1,000, the depository sends it overnight. If it's under $1,000, it's still free shipping, but they send it out via UPS ground, all insured. And this is how we've done it for tens of thousands of clients over the last 29 years. And it's a system that works to help protect and preserve and get you into the right place at the right time to take advantage of these trends, SG.
Fantastic. I really appreciate the explanation on that, because honestly, that was also partially for myself as well, right? Knowing how to relate this information for individuals that may come across in passing and ask me these sorts of questions, because I'm not a financial advisor, but I have the benefit of being able to talk to one right here, right now. I'm an actual financial advisor, not a deep state hack. So that being said, I mean, I guess, over these next maybe 5 to 10, 12 more minutes as we sort of close off here, where do you see this going? Do we see this banking issues, these issues that are going on in the Bretton Woods system? Are we really looking at this getting worse? On this program, we believe that it has to. And the reason why is because we sort of put the lens on it that the US dollar and the cabal, if we can call them that, has primarily funded and enslaved the warlords and the rest of the world by virtue of the system that they have put in place. And so we look at that on this program as though that system must absolutely die. We look at JP Morgan and the Jeffrey Epstein and the Mossad connections. We look at Bank of America and the influence with higher academia and biological terrorism. We look at Wells Fargo and the absolute frauds and farces that have been committed for generations now through mortgages and banking and loans, right? And so on this particular program, we say, look, this is something that has to be fundamentally changed. But extracting ourselves from that just for a moment, let's assume that someone is watching this and they're not really on board with all of that. They're sort of in the gray area and they're watching what's happening kinetically in real time. Are we really looking at this becoming, a top 3, top 5, top 7 major banks in the United States potentially defaulting or inheriting really the lion's share, meaning above 90%? Of the bad debt that's all throughout there in the financial world?
I do. I think this is like the beginning of the end for the system as we know it, right? I think the beginning of the end was actually in March of 2020 when the Fed changed the reserve requirement to 0%, right? During the height of the COVID summer, they tried to stimulate the economy. Banks have to keep nothing on hand. Well, that makes a bank ripe for a bank run. And then when you couple that with the FDIC that only has 1.38% of all deposits in America insured, it's like, okay, banks run out of money. FDIC is underinsured, ripe for a collapse, a societal collapse, right? And they're going to be begging for something new, begging for something different. I think what we're going to see in pretty short order is, a big bank going under yet again. First Republic, it just started this next wave of bank failures. I mean, the regional banking system, as we know it, regional banks across America, I've never seen it like this, where they're all kind of underwater, right? It's toxic, and this is going to strike fear into the hearts and minds of people, which is exactly what they want. So this is going to usher in a new system. The new system is going to be up to us, just like in a marriage. Right. If you want a good marriage, you better focus on the communication. You will get what you put focus and attention and momentum to, right? Well, let's not give focus, attention, momentum to a central bank digital currency. Let's give it to something else. One of the other alternative systems that will come up. So there's light at the end of this tunnel, but I truly believe, SG, it gets really, really dark before then. And because not enough people are awakened to the fact that they've been lied to for decades, right? They've just absolutely been lied to. And they trusted a system that should not have been trusted. Well, now it's time to change that and move, but it will get darker before it gets lighter. And I think it could start even happening this week, right? I think this weekend, you'll probably see some more banks that go under. You can't have banks that lose 70% of their share value in the last 3 days, like PacWest and some of these other ones. It's like, man, just like what I thought First Republic was going to go down, and it went down a day and a half later. We're going to see others, and it's going to be a domino effect, and people are going to get scared, and that will change society. It will change consumer confidence. When people don't have confidence in the economy moving forward, they're not going to invest in the stock market because they don't believe that that's going to be a real thing, right? So this is going to have more legs than just bank failures. It's going to impact almost every single financial sector in America, the stock market, the bond market, people's retirements, their pensions, the insurance industry, all of it, SG. And it's all starting to happen and unravel right now.
That's absolutely incredible. And just as a sidebar, I'd like to highlight for the audience as well that Dr. Kirk is here today recovering from a hernia surgery, and I'm 12 days out from a spinal surgery. So if this broadcast was a little bit more long-winded or a little bit more disorganized than normally, please do bear some patience with us on that. It's been quite a road here on this end. But, Dr. Kirk, I guess in closing, the last thing I'm going to say is I really, really appreciate your time here. It's really apparent, at least from where I'm at on this angle, and with some of the research that I put out on the channels and the broadcasts that I make, that all of this is sort of coalescing into a perfect storm. And it's a perfect storm in the financial world. It's a perfect storm in the business world. It's a perfect storm really in the societal structurals world, if we could even sort of use that nebulous term, right? How we're going to be fundamentally transforming certain portions of our society. But unlike the traitorous Hussein Obama, we're not going to transform America or the world into a giant totalitarian dictatorship worldwide. We're going to transform this world into a multipolar, fair and just world. But to go through that And to get to that process, we have to endure the pain. We have to endure the fall, right? Everybody wants the fall of the mafia. They want the fall of the cabal. Everyone's baiting, when is it going to be over? When is it going to be done? This is part of that process, in the same way that Russia has committed real lives and is losing real heroes in Europe right now to eliminate some of the most egregious criminality that's ever been carried out, right? So we're all being asked, I think, to sacrifice a little bit. I certainly appreciate you sacrificing a little bit of your time today in recovery from post-surgery, and I'm really looking forward to having a discussion again in about 3 to 4 weeks. We could be looking at something completely different out there in front of us. It's going to be very exciting.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm looking forward to it too. And I hope you recover well. And everybody that's out there, don't be scared. I want to leave you with that. Do not operate out of fear. Fear causes you to make wrong decisions or causes you to do nothing, right? And we can't do nothing. We have to operate out of faith and confidence and boldness and the security that comes from the wisdom that we have as people, right? So give us a call and we'll help walk you through that. That's what I want to leave you with. And that will put a smile on your face.
Well, there you have it, folks. Thanks again for tuning in to this third audio chat. We've got another exciting audio chat coming up in the days and weeks to come with different individuals as this series sort of progresses and grows. But I'll be back with you again soon on the Q News Patriot channel. Thank you, Dr. Kirk, for being here. And this is SG Anon. We'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.